Hey everybody, thanks for joining on this episode 3 of Overcoming Harvey, which is also now Overcoming Irma, right? And this is our continuation of our interview, sitting down with Adrian and talk about what we can do. So he talks about financial aid. We're not giving financial advice or anything like that, but he talks about what to expect as far as the timelines that they operate on. He talks about how that can impact and work with or work against what you're trying to do as far as cleanup at home. So important information there. We speak a little bit on how to work with your insurance agent, taking photos and things like that. So he goes into a little bit of detail about that. And finally, we talk about volunteers. What happens when people want to give, they want to volunteer money, time. So he has a couple ideas of maybe some things we're not thinking about. So let's get started.
We knew we did have flood insurance, and so we knew at some point somebody would cut a check. Mm-hmm. And so we were able to do as much as we could and basically get to a holding pattern where the house was clean, the house was ready to go until that check came in and we get a contractor in. If I even heard that there were some people that hadn't been able to move back into their house until January of that next year.
Next year. Goodness.
So it really depended on whether you had the flood insurance and whether you had help. Some of them were waiting for government agencies like FEMA, Save Texas, and those organizations will get you money, but it's on their schedule, it's on their timetable. So it could be, I think they had a meeting where they explicitly said it could be a year before you get those funds.
Wow.
So either until that year happens, you either abandon your house and let it rot, or in essence rebuild it and wait for, in essence, reimbursement from those agencies. Citizens are going to be expecting the government to help, and I'll be honest, they will help, but it will be a long time before they can.
Yeah.
And if you're waiting for that, you're going to be waiting a very long time.
Wow.
Some houses were to the point where, again, mold had set in, or just exposure to the elements as no one was living in it. And it ended up being more expensive. There's more work that had to be done to get them up to code, get them up to livable standards. And there was just a lot of houses that ended up being just abandoned because there was going to be more work and more effort and more money than the house itself was worth. There will be other non-government entities that will provide funds, church groups, volunteer groups, things like the Red Cross. But the funds that they can provide are going to be significantly less than what you need to rebuild. Simply because they're trying to give as much money to as many different people. I'm sure if they focused on 3 families, they could get those guys up and running in a week. But that's not their job. Their job is to try to help as many people. So that's going to be the big one. Is there's talk of there will be funds made available, but you really can't rely on the government agencies to fix your house. The other thing that a lot of people aren't thinking about is, for those that do have the flood insurance, is interacting with your agent. We were able to reach out to our agents, the company, within 48 hours, but they didn't actually show up. They didn't have people on the ground until a week later. And then at that point, they do that initial assessment, and depending on your flood level insurance, they may be able to cut you a small check, which really is only designed to cover hotels, food, living expenses, to catch you back up to where you are. It's not really an amount to address the rebuild. In a normal situation, if you had a car accident, or if a tree fell in your house, or if you had something that was not a big catastrophic event, the normal procedure is you call the insurance, and they will send an agent within 24 hours who will come and do that initial assessment. They'll take their pictures, and then based on the damage, they will, basically cut a check for that damage. For a situation like this, for a situation like Harvey, those agents are basically going to be overworked. So they may not get to your house to do that initial assessment. They need that initial assessment so that they can determine the baseline of damage, and then negotiate, work with you to figure out what is the final amount. You can't wait that long. Again, the mold being the big issue,
right?
The damage. You can't wait a week and a half for that agent to show up in your area, much less do that initial walkthrough.
Yeah.
It was take a picture of every single room, because in essence we were acting as the insurance agent.
Right. Okay.
That's your baseline of documentation. We're looking for, as we got towards the back of the house and realizing, okay, so there's some mud in the sinks and there's some mud in the bathtubs. Take a picture of that, again, to provide that base level of damage.
Mm-hmm.
Because we weren't going to wait. Again, you don't know when the agent's going to come in.
Right.
Ultimately, the agent that came in 8 days after that initial flood to do the quick walk around.
Yeah.
We couldn't let the house sit in that state for 8 days.
Yeah.
Sure. Now, all that became very valuable as when the insurance agent came in, they seen we had already done some work, had lamented that you should have waited until we got there.
Right.
I said, no, we've got plenty of pictures to document. We've got video with audio as well to document what it was like before. We showed them with our phones, like, here's some pictures. Like, we can give you the whole data dump later.
Yeah.
But this is the documentation, because we knew that they were going to use any little excuse not to provide that extra amount of money.
Right.
At the end of the day.
Right.
Because they're looking at it from a completely different perspective.
Wow.
Again, they're on their schedule.
Yeah.
And that comes up when you're selling the house. Is the house in the flood zone? Has there been any flooding?
Yeah.
What was the extent of that damage? Well, the potential buyer could see the work as, the house as it stood, all repaired, but they were very curious as to what had happened. We were able to provide those same pictures that we had provided to the insurance agents, saying, look, this is what happened. These are the, you know historically what the waters were like outside. This is the house. This is the repair work. And they could see that we had cleaned, and we had, the studs were all fine, and there had been no other damage to the house that would have been covered up by sheetrock and insulation.
Right.
We showed them the outlets as well, that the outlets were dry. So there was no mud in them, so the outlets were good. Things like that.
What is it, I mean, at that stage, should people be giving, I was talking to some people, it's like, give bleach or different things like that, but, was there something where it's like somebody came to you with something and you're just like, I could really use a towel rather than what you got in your hand, right? Or something like that. So what should people be really giving?
The first one, this being Texas, bottled water.
Bottled water, yeah.
Individual bottled water, because we were lucky in that we were able to have access to fresh water through the sinks and whatnot, but many of the other families down the street that had more devastation didn't have access to that. So the bottled water would be the first one.
Clean water.
Bottled clean water for drinking, and some minor cleaning. The second one was just the bleach and the cleaning supplies, because you don't plan on having to need 5 mops.
Yeah, right.
Things like that, right?
How many mops?
Yeah, 5 mops.
5 mops, right? Yeah, okay.
A mop for each room, or if you have an army of volunteers come in.
Oh,
you
gotta have a tool for them, right?
They didn't come in with, they just came in with their shirt on their back and are willing to work.
2 hands and ready to work, but if you don't have a tool.
Yeah, if you don't have mops, you don't have brooms, you don't have the cleaning supplies, gloves, things like that. Those were eventually provided by volunteer groups and relief aid. They were coming around with 5-gallon drums with the supplies in it. But yeah, you can never have enough mops. You can never have enough brooms, plastic gloves, trash bags, things like that. So if you could provide those items, that helps out. Or if you're going to volunteer and help out, bring those
items
as you can. Yeah. And they don't need to be fancy. In fact, more than likely, if you're going to bring some brooms, buy the cheapest brooms you can, and bring them, because you're never going to see them again. They're just going to be there, or they're going to be covered in muck that you don't want to. You don't want. You're not taking home. You're not taking home those items.
Yeah.
And then just the plastic bags, because they have multiple uses. Not only is it a plastic bag for trash, but you can put a plastic bag on furniture to cover it from inclement weather if you have to have your furniture outside for a few days.
Oh, yeah.
Things like that. Tarps are better, but you have to improvise. Yeah. So it's just those things, having the plastic bags that can be used. You can put them on the ground, and you can sit on the ground because you don't have furniture. Or you can put it on a couple bricks and have something dry and clean to sit on. Or even wrap your feet. You're going to come in with, maybe you have the water shoes, but a lot of people will have just tennis shoes, and They're going to be walking around in mud. Just wrap your feet in plastic bags, things
Yeah.
like that. So those are going to be it's the durable items. I mean, ultimately, money and resources and food will help out. But,
Yeah.
it's the water because you don't want to get dehydrated. And then the cleaning supplies.
What about like bug
bleach.
spray? Because you don't have anything.
Bug sprays,
Mosquitoes.
yes, they don't really hit that first day. It's going to be day 3, day 4 when the mosquitoes will suddenly come out of nowhere. They'll come out of hiding, and then of course longer term, you have lots of areas pooled water. They're going to be breeding like crazy. So it's not really obvious day 1, day 2, but as the week goes by and as those weeks go by, mosquitoes become a problem, and you don't want to have to go to Walmart to buy the bug spray. So there's a little bit. They don't help out in day 1, but they help out later on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, day 1, the bottled water is going to be the big one there, and then again the cleaning supplies, the fluids, the tools.
Well, thank you very much, man. This
Sure.
has been awesome, and I hope it benefits somebody.
Yeah, the reality doesn't really hit you that you're in it for the long haul. The volunteers and the government, at a certain point, they won't be there.
They go away, right?
They go away. They go back to their homes.
The news goes on to the next big story.
It does.
And then you're stuck with...
And you're stuck there with your neighbors, with your friends and family. And you can rebuild. It just takes time. And it becomes a construction project at a certain point. And then, of course, that in and of itself takes time. So, you've got to be in it for the long haul.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. Please remember to comment, like, and subscribe. We know that those people down in Florida are suffering with Hurricane Irma. They're in our thoughts and prayers. Hopefully with good information, we can get through as quickly as possible. Talk to you soon.